Today I'm in my car because baby is sleeping, so letting him sleep in the car. I'm just gonna talk about something that's been on my mind that I've wanted to make for YouTube and for my other fellow mamas. Today I wanted to talk about my breastfeeding journey. So I have been, this camera is gonna keep falling because I don't have my tripod. I have been breastfeeding for 20 months. That's crazy. That's like over a year and a half. Like, I'm 4 months away from breastfeeding for 2 years. Like, that's insane. When I first thought about breastfeeding when I was pregnant, and even before I was pregnant, it was kind of like always just a thought in the back of my mind, like, yeah, it's something I'm gonna do, but I never put like a time frame on it. Like, I wasn't ever like, I'm only gonna breastfeed for 4 months or 6 months or anything like that. It was always just like, I'm gonna breastfeed, like, I'm gonna breastfeed. It's ridiculous. I didn't put a time frame or a certain, what would you call it, like, wow, I can't think of the word. Expectation, that's the word. I didn't want to put a certain expectation on myself. I feel like when you set yourself up for an expectation, you kind of set yourself up for failure in a way, or potentially. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years. Like, my baby's almost 2, and I feel like I'm still like fresh postpartum. Like, I literally feel like I just had a baby, because it takes 2 years for a woman's body to get back into a normal like rhythm. And when I say normal, I say like what's normal for you, and it can take longer than that too. I've seen studies where it's up to like 5 or 6 or even 7 years before a woman's brain like actually starts to feel normal and operate normal. And when I say normal, I mean your standard of what feels good to you. So keep that in mind. Breastfeeding is so talked about right now, and I feel like that's so important, because breastfeeding really is so important, and it hurts my heart when there are moms out there that wish that they could breastfeed and their milk never comes in, or it came in and it goes away, and it's just like, it's heartbreaking, because some women take advantage of how much milk they have, and like, you know, they're just like whoop-de-doo about it. And then there's other moms that are like really hurting to have breast milk, and it's the same with pregnancy, right? Like, some people can get pregnant and not even know it. Other women are out there trying for years to conceive, and yeah, there's a lot of like sensitive feelings around breastfeeding and pregnancy and birth and everything like that, because it is a sensitive subject. It's so sacred, it's so special, it's ceremonious, it's incredible. I love everything about pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, postpartum, all of it, even as hard as it is. When I got pregnant, I didn't even think about breastfeeding until the last few weeks of my pregnancy, and I remember talking to my doula, and like, I don't even know how to breastfeed. And I remember telling her, because she came, I did like a 35-week visit with her, something like that, where we were just going over my birth. We had a home birth, so my doula came to the house and everything, but I hate when I say we had a home birth, because it's not that we had a home birth. I gave birth at home. So anyways, I remember talking to my doula at like 35 weeks and telling her like, I need to watch a YouTube video on how to like breastfeed and like what I need to know about breastfeeding. To me, it felt like such a big thing, because I was like, holy crap, like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. And I thought I had like at least 5 or more weeks of pregnancy left, but my baby came when I was 37 weeks and 4 days is when I gave birth. I did not look up how to breastfeed or anything about that, so literally gave birth in the bathroom. I was sitting on a birthing stool because I was trying to birth my placenta, and my midwife was like, let's try and see if your baby will latch, because when you latch your baby for the first time, it helps your body, like, obviously your body knows that you gave birth, but it helps release your placenta from your uterus. It helps that birthing process of the placenta. We latched my baby. He latched right away, which was amazing, and that was my first experience with breastfeeding, like information, anything like that. Like, I had no idea how I was gonna breastfeed. Like nothing. Like I was just like a deer in headlights almost. I was listening to my intuition even though I had no idea what the heck was happening. I had no idea what a good latch looked like or anything like that. So my doula kind of helped me with that. I was still so confused though. I remember my left nipple was so jacked because my baby only had like half of my nipple in his mouth, and it literally, like, when you get an injured nipple from like a poor latch, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, like it can ruin that nipple, at least in my experience, for a couple of days. I wish that I had learned what a deeper latch was like, and that you do need a deep latch. Like, what the heck is like, if this is the first time that you've ever looked into breastfeeding, you're gonna be like, what the heck is a latch? Like, what the heck's a deep latch? What the heck's a shallow latch? Like, I had no clue. You want to make sure that when you give your baby your nipple, you like put it at their nose. You want their chin to like go into the bottom part of your nipple. You can kind of just like put your nipple in their mouth, and it can have like a deep latch, and it does help like if you squeeze your breast a little bit and kind of like do that. That was the start of my breastfeeding journey. Sitting on a birthing stool in the bathroom, trying to birth my placenta and latched my baby for the first time. My mom took a video of it that I didn't even know she had until a couple months ago when I asked her for videos and footage that she had from when I gave birth, and I found that video in there. So it was really special because I have forgotten so much from my birth, and I still haven't even recorded my birth story, which I'm gonna do. I need to get it out because I don't want to forget more little details like that. You don't have to write your birth story, like even a couple days after you give birth, like just do like a voice memo or something to yourself, telling yourself your experience and like what your birth was like when you're still in that birth realm, and then you can write it down later and make it like your story if you want. But that's something I wish that I did, so I'm sharing that with you. Yeah, breastfeeding is hard, especially the very first week of postpartum, and many women don't talk about it. Many women do not share their experience. Many women, like, I don't know why it's so like taboo, and I feel like maybe it's because it's hard to admit that it was hard when it's such like a beautified, glorified topic. Like, you see so many amazing videos and pictures of women breastfeeding and like latching their babies and stuff, and it's like no one talks about the hard side of that though. And there truly is a hard side, especially when you're learning. Like, not only are you learning, but your baby is also learning how to breastfeed. It's a lot of work, and that first week of postpartum is like, what the hell is happening to me? It's the most beautiful and intimate moment of your entire life, but yet it's the freaking hardest and most life-altering and changing experience of your life. Like, you literally went from just being your own woman in your maiden era and like wife or partner and living for yourself to one day you go and birth your baby, and then that's it. That is your story from then on there, and that is a hard reality, especially when you're going through a hard time. And postpartum is extremely hard for most women, including myself, and that's why I want to talk about it, because I wish that I had something like this to prepare myself for and make sure that I knew a little bit of what I might go through or something like that. So this video isn't meant to scare you, or like, I'm not trying to warn you or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience because it's so important. And I see so many times on like videos and stuff where women that do share their experience, they're like, no one ever told me that childbirth and postpartum would be this hard. Like, it's so glorified. It's like the same thing when people get married. They're like, oh, I just want to get married. I want to find that most amazing person. Like, but they don't talk about all the hard stuff that you're gonna have to go through. And that's also how birth and pregnancy and postpartum and breastfeeding is too. It's very hard, and no one talks about the depths that you have to go to find yourself and grow and heal yourself in so many different ways. That's why I'm here sharing my experience, because it's so important. After you have your baby, obviously you are going to be sore. Whether you had a C-section or had your baby vaginally, you're going to be sore. My husband just got home from work, so on top of that, you're going to experience the biggest hormonal shift in your life, and that happens usually around like day 3. And I remember hearing stories of women that were like, I cried for days and days and days, and I'm not somebody that really cries that much. There he is. But postpartum, I was crying over everything. Literally the smallest things. It was like years and years and years of me never crying came out and made up for it. Like, it was wild. Not to mention just healing from birth. Your milk comes in, and I remember people talking about colostrum and like collecting colostrum before your baby is born. You can do that. Some women also have colostrum just start coming from their breasts. So you can collect colostrum and save that for your baby, because it really is amazing stuff. My baby, when he was born, he came a couple weeks early, and so my milk, I didn't even know. Like, I was like, do I even have breast milk? Like, what the heck? When he first latched, obviously I had milk in there. Like, him latching told my body, okay, like, baby's here, we gotta start making milk all the time. So it takes a couple of days for your milk to actually come in, where it changes from like the yellow colostrum to an actual like white milk. I know that some women really worry about how much they need to be feeding their babies. So without knowing, I fed exclusively on demand. So that means that anytime my baby wanted milk or anytime he woke up, I would just feed him. Literally fed my baby every 2 hours. From my experience, when he was born, he slept literally all the time, and that was something that shocked me, because I thought that like babies would be awake like have wake times, but that doesn't happen till later, at least in my experience. He literally would wake up, drink some milk, and then go back to sleep after a little bit of being awake, but he was never awake for like hours or anything like that. I never pumped. Remember, one of my friends was like, how did you do that? How did you have your milk come in and not pump? I just fed my baby. That's what women did back then. I didn't research anything, how often I should feed my baby or anything like that. Like, I just listened to my body, and my boobs were full, and I was like, feed the baby. Like, that's all I did. I get it that there are some women that unfortunately don't have the space to be home for the first couple of weeks and literally just lay in bed and breastfeed their baby. I'm so grateful, because that's how me and my husband set it up. I didn't have a job that I had to take maternity leave from or anything like that. So my husband also got 12 weeks off of work. So that was really nice. That was really nice. I literally just laid in bed and breastfed my baby, and I had a Haka that has like the suction cup on the bottom, but the Haka is so important. I loved having my Haka. It's like a manual breast pump, so you can literally just like pop it on one side when you're breastfeeding, feed your baby on the other side, obviously, and it can catch your milk. Or you can like hand express if your breasts are sore and they're like engorged because your milk came in. If your baby's still sleeping or something, like you can hand express into the Haka, and that will give you some relief. You can also trigger a letdown by using like just some stimulation with your fingers, or even like a warm washcloth or something like that. Just doing it that way, that can also stimulate a letdown to help release any milk. The reason why I didn't pump when breastfeeding was because when your baby is born, your milk has to regulate to your baby, because your body is gonna be producing enough milk to, if you had twins, if not more than that. So it's really incredible. So that's why it's called feeding on demand, because your body is going to adjust and regulate itself to how much milk your baby's drinking. So basically, when your milk comes in, it's just gonna like flood you with milk. And if you are pumping that milk and continuing to tell your body, okay, I need 5 ounces every like 2 hours because that's what you're pumping, your body's going to be giving that to you. So your milk isn't ever going to regulate to your baby if you're pumping on top of breastfeeding. You're going to always have like an overflow of breast milk while you're pumping. So that is one of the reasons why I didn't pump in the beginning, because you really don't need to. You want your body to adjust to what your baby is drinking. When your milk is coming in, that's why hand expressing is okay, because you're not like calling your body to make more milk. You're just expressing milk that's like already there. So that is one important thing that I just remembered. A lot of times that is a hidden mistake that women make, because everyone talks about pumping and how you need a breast pump and how you need all these things. Like, really, honestly, you really only need a Haka or something, some type of like manual breast pump, just to help engorgement and to keep you from getting mastitis or something like that. That is a very helpful tip, and something to remember is that you don't have to pump. The other thing that I had no idea about is letdowns. So letdown is the muscle stimulation in your breast that excretes milk from you. And I had no idea that that was even a thing. Like, I didn't even know what milk ducts look like. I would like look at my nipple and I'm like, how is milk coming out of this? Where is it coming from? You can look online for like a diagram, and literally like your breast is literally like the shape of a flower. It's really amazing. There's so many veins and stuff in your breast tissue that brings milk to your nipple. So it comes from blood, and it's really interesting because breast milk actually smells like blood, and that would make sense because that's where milk comes from. Your hormones control the letdown. Some women, like me, I experienced DMER, which is, I can't remember what it stands for. Basically, your body releases dopamine and oxytocin that makes you like bond with your baby and really happy. But sometimes instead of a boost in dopamine, you can have a drop in dopamine. And it just makes you feel like, for me, it's like the worst feeling in the world. It makes me feel really, really thirsty. My breasts hurt so freaking bad for like the first like minute of breastfeeding, and it still does. If I didn't feed my baby for a couple hours longer than normal and I have more breast milk than usual, it hurts really, really bad if you're sore or if you have something going on like a sore milk duct, or your nipples are just sore from feeding and stuff like that. So it can be really painful, and I've experienced that for the entire time of breastfed. That can be tricky, but I still love breastfeeding. I push through it like it's fine. Some women experience is their babies have tongue ties or lip ties. My baby has a lip tie on his upper lip. I never did anything about it. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal. It's the part in front of your teeth that your gum attaches to your lip. So there's like a band of skin there that sometimes it's like sits lower. And so it prevents your baby's like upper lip from like flanging out all the way on your breast. So that can also cause for like a shallow latch when they're breastfeeding. I just worked through it. If it is inhibiting your baby from getting milk and stuff like that though, then that's when you could look into releasing the tie, whether it's a tongue tie or a lip tie. My baby didn't have a hard time with getting milk. It was just on my end because it was painful. So that's also something that can be adding to a shallow latch if something like that is going on. I feel like lactation consultants are a really good, undervalued asset. A lot of people don't know about lactation consultants, but I feel like they're very important to have, especially if you're running into problems when you're breastfeeding and like you have questions. Like, just talk to a lactation consultant. Like, there's even ones on Instagram that are free and they like have so much amazing valuable information. So I never had mastitis. There were times where I thought I had it, but I never wound up getting it. I've had a few milk blebs, and they are like these white blisters that basically cover over your milk duct, and so it blocks milk from leaving your milk duct, and that can cause mastitis or some start of an infection if you don't clear that. So One way to clear that is putting like hot water in your haka and filling it up with Epsom salt and, you know, attaching it and letting it soak for like 15 minutes. And you can like try and massage while you're doing that to like release milk or move milk around. If that milk bleb is blocking your milk duct, it's gonna probably just be really painful until you get that off. So once it's soaked for about 15 minutes, you can take your breast out and use like a washcloth and just like scrape that blister off really fast. It's gonna hurt really bad. But that milk should like instantly release. There have been people that I know, and I've done it personally, where I used like the tip of a very sanitized needle. It has to be sanitized. You have to clean your stuff, because if you don't, there's a risk for infection. So make sure you sanitize it with like alcohol. I always do like heat, like with a lighter or something, and then I clean it with alcohol and make sure I clean it really good and rinse it really well. And then you can use that and just pick that blister off of your milk duct, and literally you'll know that it's a milk bleb because milk will just start pouring out. So there was one time where I thought I was dealing with a clogged milk duct from like something inside. Dealt with it for like 24 hours. I was in excruciating pain. I had heat, I had vibration, I had everything that I could think of on my breast, and I just had this like little white thing on there, and I was like, what the heck is that? In the middle of the night after feeding my baby, it just hurt so bad, and so I literally took my nail and I just picked at that white thing really hard, and milk just started like flowing down my side and everything, and I was like, oh my god, what was that and what just happened? And I learned later that it was a milk bleb. It took weeks for me to figure out how to heal it, but literally doing the Epsom salt is what healed it. And it only took like 3 days once I started doing that process of soaking it in Epsom salt and just keeping that clear with like a washcloth or something. So that's an important tip too. You gotta listen to your body. There have been times where I've taken Duck Loose by, can't remember the name, I can link it. Basically sunflower lecithin. I don't really know if it works, but I took it to try it because there were some times where I felt like I needed something to make sure that I wasn't gonna get like mastitis or something, because like I felt super engorged or like there was like some pain going on. So I just took it just in case. I only took it a couple times. It's not great to just ingest oil like that, but there's a lot of people that really believe, like really truly believe in sunflower lecithin for helping keep your milk flowing and like the viscosity good of it. It's also something that you could look into to have on hand when you start breastfeeding. Your breast milk is made of mostly sugar. A lot of people have a misconception that it's made out of protein and fat, but it's really sugar and carbohydrates. So having a very good diet of carbohydrates and natural sugar, like sugar coming from fruits and vegetables and potatoes. Potatoes are amazing for breast milk. Avocados are amazing for breast milk. Coconut water is amazing for breast milk. I want to make sure if you're drinking coconut water though that it is the clear stuff and that it's not pink or red, because pink or red coconut water is starting to ferment. It's really important to drink clear coconut water. If you have a low breast milk production and you want to raise it, make sure you're eating a lot of steamed russet potatoes and gold Yukon potatoes. Sweet potatoes are good too, but those russet potatoes have a abundance of glucosamine and carbohydrates, and your body needs that, especially after birth when your adrenals were used so much giving birth. Your body is drained and recovering, and you will benefit from those potatoes as well. So watermelon's also really good. Any type of melon postpartum is amazing for rebuilding your blood. Another thing that's really good for breast milk is nettle, like nettle leaf and raspberry leaf tea. You can also take like a nettle tincture. You also got to look out for reactions that your baby might be having. There's a lot of times where babies are colicky, and it has a lot to do with mom's diet. The number one diet issue is dairy and like fish. Sometimes mustard, like mustard seed, is a really big trigger for babies. Fish can be one, corn, soy. There's so many different things. My baby developed food allergies a couple months into breastfeeding because when he was first born, I was like, he doesn't spit up like at all. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was so worried about my baby spitting up all the time and losing his milk. And a couple weeks went by and he started to get more spit uppy, and I was like, this is weird. Like, I thought babies grew out of being spit uppy. My baby started getting worse and worse and worse, to the point of where after he was done feeding, he would just lose an entire like stomach worth of food. And I was like, okay, there's something going on here. Basically had to give up dairy, gluten, fish, soy, eggs, corn, literally every major food, and all of my vitamins and supplements. They were making my baby so sick. Once I did that, his spitting up completely stopped. It wasn't until after he was a year old that I was able to start bringing stuff back in and working on having a normal diet again. There was a lot of learning and unlearning that happened during my breastfeeding journey. It was hard. I feel like the first week of postpartum was like, I remember my midwife telling me before she left after I gave birth, and she said, day 3, you're gonna feel like you got hit by a truck. And she was not lying. Like, but then she was like, after a week, you should feel a lot better. Your nipples shouldn't be sore. Like, and for me, they were still sore. Breastfeeding postpartum was like the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was the most painful thing I've ever done, but I'm so glad that I just kept doing it, and I was headstrong about it even though I didn't feel like it. So one of the hardest things that a lot of people don't talk about is when you're postpartum and you're breastfeeding, the hormones that release your letdown, they also trigger your uterus to shrink. So when your uterus is shrinking back down from breastfeeding, that feeling is insane. It's like some of the worst cramping that you've ever had. It is nothing compared to contractions that you feel. Contractions to me were easy. Towards the end, when I was about to give birth, they were really hard, but pretty much my entire labor was fairly easy. It was just like the last hour that I was like, okay, this is taking everything in my power reserves that I need to use right now. When you're breastfeeding your baby during that first week of postpartum, your uterus is shrinking back down. So it's like, for me, it was like the worst period cramps that I've ever had. And it lasts for about, I don't know, a couple minutes during your breastfeeding. And then it like lightens up and it goes away. So I took a lot of ibuprofen that first week. I also had a really gnarly hematoma, and my pelvic floor got really jacked up, because that's a whole different video that I want to talk about my birth. But my pelvic floor was really, really sore. So I was in a lot of pain between giving birth and then my breastfeeding and my nipples being so freaking sore because I was trying to figure out how to breastfeed a baby. And then on top of my uterus shrinking back down, I was like, give me the Advil. Like, I that was my thing that I had to have. You can drink raspberry leaf tea, and there are some like natural tonics, but I was just to that point of where I was like emotionally, mentally, and physically tapped out. That I was like, I can't endure these feelings and this pain right now. And I knew that Advil was helping me relieve that and get through it. I was also taking Arnica, which Arnica, there's like this brand, I think it's called like Boiron or something like that. It's like a blue bottle, and they're like these Arnica pellets that you dissolve into your tongue, and those I think helped. I don't really know, but Advil was definitely my best friend postpartum. So breastfeeding is really hard. Once you get after like 2 months of breastfeeding, that's when it starts to get easy. Your milk really starts to regulate. Your body is more healed. You're able to start doing stuff more. you feel more comfortable to get out of the house and go places. Like, you're starting to feel more comfortable in your body and like motherhood. So I feel like around the 1.5 to 2 month mark is when I was like, okay, I can handle this. It gets easier, and I'm 20 months in now, and it's like second nature to me. Our baby sleeps with me, and he still wakes up a couple times a night to breastfeed, and I just do it. So I don't know. I love breastfeeding. I love the benefits that it gives him and me. I love being able to supplement his diet with breast milk. I feel like he just gets the ultimate best of everything. And even if I'm like, sometimes I'll make like chicken strips or something that's like not the best, and I'm like, well, he got breast milk, like he drinks breast milk during the day, so it kind of makes me feel better about stuff. I love breastfeeding. There's nothing that I've ever regretted about it. You just have to be careful with like supplements and things that you eat or drink. A lot of women are under the misconception that like wine and alcohol is okay as long as you pump and dump, but don't fall into that, because that stuff stays in your system and it's just not good for your baby. Like, even coffee, in my opinion, caffeine, chocolate, I stay away from that stuff because it's not worth the effects that my baby's brain can have. Even during pregnancy, I never drank coffee, I never had any chocolate. Like, it's really important because it's an overstimulant for your baby's brain. Caffeine's addictive, and you don't want your babies to go under that. And I know that's information that I've learned from medical medium that they're not going to come out with until many years down the road. And one day they're going to say, yeah, coffee, caffeine, chocolate's toxic for your baby's brain. So I learned about that, and I was like, like, no, I'm not going to do that. So that's something you can look more into. You can read about it through medical medium. He has a pregnancy podcast, and he talks about it in there. I don't really know what else to talk about. I need to go inside, so I'll probably finish this video in a little bit, and hopefully I can think of more things to talk about. So I'll see you guys in a few.